Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Jesper Hansen, and as Jesper said, I'm working for a Taiwanese vertical farming company, but I am originally from Copenhagen, Denmark. And I'm here today to talk about what vertical farming is, what type of advantages and disadvantages it offers. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the current status of the industry. And then finally, I'm going to give sort of my perspective of how we should look at the industry going forward. What are the type of expectations we should have? And maybe what are the type of expectations we should not have? So first of all, I'm educated in Chinese studies from University of Copenhagen, and I have about 10 years of professional career working in China and Taiwan. Today I work as a CCO at YesHealth Group, and YesHealth Group is at one and same time the biggest what we call vertical farm operator in Taiwan, meaning that we have built and operate our own farms, and we have our own product that has our own YesHealth brand to it, selling into retail platforms such as Costco, Carrefour, Jason's, and so on. But then our company originates from a manufacturing background. Our founder, he built a manufacturing company in the LED industry before. And as such, we are unique in the sense that we hold almost 100% of all the technologies that we use in the farm, from the LEDs to the racks to all the process equipment, even the software systems that we apply, we have custom written by ourselves. And this has allowed us to become a global technology provider for other companies that wants to venture into vertical farming. And as such, I have been part of building some of the largest vertical farms built in Taiwan, China, in Europe, and currently also in the Middle East. And in that capacity, I sit as a board member to, for instance, the largest vertical farming company in Denmark called Nordic. We also recently launched a company in the Baltic region, which is aiming to expand in the greater East Europe region, which is called leafy. This is my background. So what is vertical farming? Vertical farming looks like this. It comes in different forms and shapes, but typically looks like this. And if you look up a general accepted definition, say on Wikipedia, it will tell you something along the lines that vertical farming is the practice of growing crops, mostly leafy greens, in vertically stacked layers, one above each other, in a controlled environment. And it's really the concept of bringing crop production from an uncontrolled, say, outside environment or semi-controlled environment, say a modern greenhouse, into a fully controlled environment in order to reap the benefits from that. When I talk about controlling the environment, I talk about controlling the air, for instance, making sure that no unwanted pathogens, animals, insects of whatever kind comes into the facility in the first place. So we're talking about an airtight facility, kind of a warehouse building. Then it's climate control, meaning that you have full control over the air, you have control over the temperature, you have control over the humidity, you have the right type of airflow, allowing for the plants to have optimal respiration, and so on and so forth. It's obvious that one of the drawbacks, and we'll get to that later, is that by growing in multiple layers, we can no longer utilize the sunlight. So we're replacing sunlight by using LEDs. However, this gives us a lot of advantages because there's actually quite a lot of light contained in the spectrum of the sun, which is not immediately useful to the plants. So in a vertical farm, we also control the light in terms of its spectrum, its intensity, and also its period. So we can choose to have a day of, say, 12 hours of light. It could be 14, 16 hours of light, depending on the set parameters for any given crop. A vertical farm also looks like this. I would like to offer maybe an alternative definition, which I think fits better. We could think of a vertical farm as the practice of using different advanced technologies to grow crops in a manner that solves not all, but many of present day most urgent problems or challenges in agriculture. And if we take a look at what that is, then if we briefly scroll down here on some of the issues which vertical farming might offer a solution to, and these are in non-prioritized order. Nevertheless, the use of pesticides and other harmful agriculture chemicals is an issue everywhere. It's not only an immediate issue when you actually consume the product, that there are still traces of pesticides. Pesticides also run off into the soil environment, nearby water environments with damaging effects to that. We're talking about soil degradation and environment pollution caused by overuse of fertilizers. Now I'm talking about traditional agriculture. In Denmark, for instance, we're hugely, we're farmland that occupies a large percentage of our soil environment, and the use of phosphorus, for instance, has caused a lot of issues with killing nearby water systems for fish and other animals that should be around but are no longer around because we have overused fertilizers in an attempt to grow more from the soil that we have available. Following from that, we have a rapid biodiversity loss caused by the two above factors. I used to give the example that again in Denmark, when I grew up and I drove with my parents during the summer to the beach up north of where we live. When we got to the beach, the front screen window of the car would be full of dead bugs, insects that had hit the window screen. But when I make the same trip today, 30 years after, there's hardly any insects left on the screen. And the reason is that the way that we have kind of impacted the environment, and to that agriculture is not the only factor, but it is a big factor, has made a lot of our biodiversity unfortunately disappear from our, say, natural environment. Vertical farming also offers a solution to some of the supply chain challenges that we have. Again, it's no coincidence that YesHealth has started building vertical farms in places like North Europe, the Middle East, where the natural environment does not offer the conditions to grow salads using a more traditional approach. It's either too cold, it's too warm, lack of water. And that means that because the consumer, regardless of it's a consumer in Denmark, in the Philippines, in Africa, all around the world still demands the full spectrum of the products, agriculture products, meaning that salads, in the case of Denmark, needs to be transported from Italy. Go to a category like fruits, it's even worse. You're transporting bananas from South America to Denmark. And that's happening all around the year, regardless of whether those crops can actually be grown locally. That comes with longer transportation times, larger carbon footprint. It comes with some stability challenges as well, especially more increasingly with climate change, whereas this type of controlled environment agriculture is actually facing an efficiency year by year, meaning that we get more and more efficient. traditional agriculture is to some extent around the world experiences the opposite. So due to extreme weather conditions, more and more harvests are failing in traditional agriculture. And then finally, and it's actually quite a big driver for our company especially, is that how do we excite young people in doing agriculture for the future? Humankind still have to eat food, and we would need to eat even more in the future. All the time we're getting more people, and it's just a fact that whether you look to Denmark, the Philippines, or most of the places that I have visited, is that traditional farmer is either very close to, or in some places well beyond what we would call retirement age. I think the United Nations has the average age of a farmer worldwide at some 60 years. And it's not surprising all the time that agriculture sometimes linked with low profitability. It's hard work, it's outside, under the sun, any kind of weather. And as I just mentioned, it's really a roller coaster. Some years are good, other years are not so good. So it's not a super interesting industry to attract young people, unless we talk about vertical farming. Because what is vertical farming? It's no longer outdoor, it's indoor. It applies computer technologies, engineering disciplines like automation and so on. So we have, at least from YesHealth perspective, been very successful in attracting young people, what we call the next generation of farmers, back into agriculture. So this is one of the advantages as well. And since vertical farms are not everywhere and around the corner, there must be some drawbacks too. And certainly there is holding the industry back. One of them for sure is high capital expenditure of building these farms. So a vertical farm is hugely more expensive to build than a traditional greenhouse, or to acquire a piece of land in a more traditional field operation. YesHealth Group has built 5 of the world's maybe 15 largest farms. And when we say large farm, we talk about a farm that has capacity to grow and harvest above 1 ton of capacity per day. So 365 tons per year. And these farms require somewhere between 5 to 25 million US dollars just to build. Then comes the high operating costs, which are mostly linked to electricity consumption. And to give you a ballpark figure of where we are, again, these large farms that we're building with YesHealth Group, capacity from 1 to 2, 3 tons per day, uses anywhere from 10,000 to 30,000 kilowatt hour per day. So to put that in perspective, a typical household with all modern day electrical appliances also use 10,000 kilowatt hours, but it's in a year. So meaning that a vertical farm consumes electricity equivalent to several households' yearly consumption. They do that every day. So it's relatively energy consuming. And this is another reason why YesHealth Group has tried to build farms first off in areas, as I said, again, where the local climate does not promote year-round production using traditional ways. But also, as a case of Denmark, we actually in Denmark have about 50% of all our electricity is supplied from wind power. And wind power has this characteristic that it's available both during the day and during the night, due to the wind being never turned on and off. There's also wind during the night, but there's very little consumption during the night. So in fact, Denmark sells our electricity. Sometimes we even give it away for free to neighboring countries. But a vertical farm has this advantage that we do not need to tell the plants what the time is outside the farm. So we can let the plants to believe that night is day and day is night, so to speak. So what we do in Copenhagen is that we actually shine the LED light on the plants during the nighttime, taking advantage of this surplus or cheap technology that is available on the grid. And this is one of the ways that vertical farms should try to work around this high electricity use, is to try and make use of excess energies or renewable energies when these are available. Furthermore, vertical farmers talk about feeding the world, but we also have to be honest that what we're growing at the moment is mostly leafy greens. And by leafy greens, we mean all types of lettuces, iceberg, romaine, Boston lettuce. We talk about cruciferous being arugula, spinach, kales. And then the last category that we're able to grow at the moment are herbs. So basil, coriander, mint, thyme, oregano. And it's not to say that we're not able to grow other type of crops or even soft fruits like strawberries, blueberries. They can grow. Obviously, they're all the required conditions such as light and air and the nutrients, but we cannot grow them with a profit. And you have to think of a lettuce being profitable in a vertical farm because it grows from seed to harvest in a matter of weeks, whereas it takes months to grow a strawberry and harvest a ripe strawberry. So for the moment in time, when we talk about profitable vertical farming, 99% of the time we talk about growing leafy greens. And then the last thing is that YesHealth has managed over close to a decade to turn profitable in our home market of Taiwan. But when we look at the new farms that we're building around the world, we are in the same situation as most of our industry peers, is that it takes years to turn profitable. So for instance, a farm we built in Copenhagen recently takes easily 3 to 4 years to become profitable due to the above high capital layout and relatively high electricity consumption. So going in to talk about where we are today, I think this it's called a Gartner hype cycle, offers a pretty good framework to understand where we are today, and also leading into a talk about what should we think of the possibilities for vertical farming in the future. I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but it talks about, it's actually not here, but if you had an X horizontal axis, it talks about development over time. And then the one that you see on the Y axis, the vertical axis, talks about expectations. So it all starts with, say, the innovation trigger, which happened in vertical farming about, I would say, 20 years ago. And it started in Asia and then found its way to United States afterwards, and then have only recently moved into to Europe. And that is when, you know, initial funding took place, media started to take interest in the technology, and you had a growth from, say, a handful of companies into hundreds of companies, which we have experienced over the past couple of years. But I also think the curve has turned around somewhat. I think we have a lot of companies has failed to achieve the promises and the expectations. And you have seen companies, for instance, in the United States, there's a very well-respected company that's called AeroFarms that has tried to go public using this SPAC option, where they merge with an existing company on the stock market, trying to justify a valuation just around $1 billion US dollars, but on a revenue, I would suppose, yearly revenue of less than $10 million. So asking people to believe in the technology so much that they would buy shares on a total enterprise value of $1 billion when the company has only realized an annual turnover of $10 million. And that actually also failed. So I think we're seeing right now that some of the expectations that were put upon the industry and some of the major industry players have been somewhat disappointing. But I think what will happen, and I'll get back to why I'm still confident on behalf of this industry, is that you'll see a whole group of companies that just didn't get it right for a whole range of reasons, somewhat fade out or maybe pivot around and get on the right track. And then you'll see a number of companies that will then consolidate the industry and get through a period where they kind of reinvent themselves and come up with a second or third or fourth generation of technologies that have solved many of the issues that we have been struggling with. And then you'll see a renewed kind of stabilization of the industry, which really starts to deliver on some of the promises. And here I talk mostly about the profitability aspect, because as I just showed you, all these value attributes, it's pesticides free, it's year round, it's locally produced, those are already there. But what does it matter if the business can be sustained in a commercial way? And this turnaround will be largely in part, I think, to a realignment or calibration of expectations. And this is not to say anything, because this is actually an American company has this prototype. It's just a concept. It's not to say anything about this specific company. But I think vertical farming has been thought of as a technology-driven way of doing farming. So a lot of companies has fallen into the trap of thinking that technology should completely replace farmers, meaning that you have robots that are fully autonomous in operating the farm. You have computer algorithms, AI type of systems that determine when a crop is, requires more water or when it's good for harvest and so on and so forth. And that obviously requires some type of technologies which are not ready available today. And it also increases the capital cost on building these farms. I would like to propose another way of looking at it. I would like to change the order of the words. So instead of talking about technology farming, I would like to put the word farming in front of technology and then say we are first and foremost farmers, and then we're using technology in ways and only in those ways that serves the purpose of delivering on those values that I had on a previous slide. So that means actually not throwing away the decades, or I may say hundreds of years of know-how that we have built around being farmers, meaning that a person actually is inside the farm, conducts daily inspections and, making sure that the plants are healthy and sound. And although the prospects of having a computer or a robot doing that is interesting for the future, it is not immediately where the industry is today. I believe the hybrid in going forward and making this industry profitable, we should consider a hybrid between what is already known to work from outdoor greenhouse, but putting it into a vertical farm, but without overkilling the vertical farm with the technology. And finally, so to sum up why I'm confident and excited about the future and dare to say that yes, vertical farming is here to stay, is that if we are able to recalibrate our thinking around vertical farming, making sure that we don't build these farms more expensive than they have to be, and remember that there's always going to be a human aspect of running a vertical farms. And I can give you a couple of ballpark figures of where we are in terms of reaching this profitability. So from the time we built our first major large farm in Taiwan in 2013, so almost 10 years ago, we have very consistently achieved a 10% productivity increase per year, meaning that if we spend $1 to grow a salad of 1 kilo, then next year we still spend the same dollar, but now we can grow 1.1 kilo of salad for the same amount of resources and energy. And that has compounded over the years to a point where we're actually able, in our most efficient farms, this one in Taiwan, for instance, to grow and sell at par, at level with other organic or bio products, meaning that they're no longer a premium price to our product. Given that all the technologies that we use, from LED to automation to computer science, is improving and is expected to improve exponentially over the years, then give us another 5 years with 10% per year, we should be well in the range where we can actually offer this technology more broadly at a competitive price level. And then finally, to tie back to my point about exciting the next generation, I just have to look at this picture and look how those young kids are excited about the farm, to remember that there's a future for vertical farming. So with that, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to answer your questions.